Franklin Lam takes leave from the Executive Council. In U-turn, Michael Bloomberg cancels New York City Marathon. And a deadly train crash down under.
Good evening. Franklin Lam has taken a leave of absence from the Executive Council. The EXCO member has come under fire for selling 2 flats before the government announced measures to cool the property market last week. Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam did jump to Franklin Lam's defence earlier today, saying there's no need for him to resign from EXCO. The Chief Secretary for Administration was adamant that the sale of Franklin Lam's 2 mid-level flats before the government introduced new measures to cool property prices last week did not pose a conflict of interest. Carrie Lam said that's why she doesn't see a reason for him to resign from the Executive Council. She believed Franklin Lam would continue to explain himself and dispel rumours about what had happened. The Chief Secretary also pointed out that the Chief Executive, Financial Secretary and many EXCO members have all vouched for Lam that he would not have known about the measures beforehand. EXCO convener Lam Woon Kwong did urge the councillor to clarify the matter. The EXCO convener believes claims that Franklin Lam had used insider information do not stand, but thought the embattled EXCO member should consider how to better explain himself regarding the arrangements and procedures of the transactions. National People's Congress Standing Committee member Rita Fan agreed that Franklin Lam needs to clear up any doubts the public may have about him. But she said it's understandable that he isn't politically sensitive enough because he's new to public service. The government announced this afternoon Franklin Lam has taken a leave of absence from the Executive Council. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying has accepted the request. During his absence, Franklin Lam will not attend the meetings and briefings of the Executive Council, and the government will not send him relevant documents. Several lawmakers earlier filed complaints against Lam with the ICAC, and the real estate agency that handled the sale confirmed the anti-graft body has launched an investigation into the matter. ICAC Commissioner Simon Pei today refused to discuss the case, but he believes the confidentiality clause governing EXCO members would not stand in the way of an ICAC investigation.
The government will try again to get funding approval for its controversial old age living allowance scheme at the LegCo Finance Committee next week. And while officials are urging lawmakers to support the proposal, it looks like delaying tactics might come into play again. Etienne Lammy-Smith reports.
I really can't guarantee the outcome because it's beyond me. The power rests with LegCo members, and I urge them, I sincerely appeal to them, for the sake of the interests of over 400,000 needy elders, approve the application as quickly as possible.
An appeal to lawmakers from the welfare chief ahead of another finance committee meeting scheduled for Friday. Earlier this week, the committee failed to vote on the proposal. The key point of contention is a means test which would decide who is entitled to claim the $2,200 monthly stipend. Some lawmakers have also accused the government of trying to press ahead with the funding request without giving them a chance to discuss it properly. Finance Committee Chairman Tommy Chung told TVB News today that he expects the proposal will be passed, but that lawmakers might not make it easy.
With our rules and procedures, we talk about 37A, where members can move a motion without notice. They could repeat it a few thousand times to kind of stall our passing.
Speaking on a radio program today, Executive Council convener Lam Woon Kwong said society has expressed support for the old age living allowance scheme. But he said that for lawmakers to try to turn that into a universal pension scheme in one step is a misguided move. If funding is approved by the Finance Committee, the government says the eligible elderly citizens could start receiving their allowance that same month. Etienne Lammy-Smith, TVB News.
2 top pro-Beijing figures today discuss government and politics. Rita Fan stood by her recent comments criticising Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's administration. Maria Tam said people should not oppose a government simply to protect their own interests. A local deputy to the National People's Congress, Maria Tam, today voiced support for Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's government. She said it's not lacking in objectives, ability or determination. What the administration lacks, Tam said, is support from society. The government has to consider the big picture in its policy making, and people should not be short-sighted and simply focus on their own interests, she added. With a new batch of MPC deputies soon to be elected, Tam hopes those members will stand up for the SAR administration. Meanwhile, another top pro-Beijing figure, MPC Standing Committee member Rita Fan, defended her recent comments criticizing Leung's government. Fan said she has always been honest and a straight shooter and insisted she would not change her stance just because of the upcoming MPC election. Saying there's no point for her to worry about such criticisms, she made clear if people don't like what she says, they have the right not to vote for her. The current term for MPC deputies will end in March 2013. An electoral council of about 1,800 people will then vote for 36 deputies to represent Hong Kong in the country's parliament.
Turning overseas now, and in an about-face, Mayor Michael Bloomberg has cancelled the New York City Marathon. He was hoping that the event would inspire the Big Apple after the devastation of Superstorm Sandy. But that sparked outrage among those hit hard by the storm. The number of dead in New York City alone has risen to 40, and the US death toll has now hit 102. James LaGiulia reports.
The New York City Marathon was canceled yesterday by Mayor Michael Bloomberg after mounting criticism that it was not the right time for a race, with the region still recovering from the effects of Superstorm Sandy. With people in storm-ravaged areas shivering without electricity, many New Yorkers recoiled at the prospect of police officers being assigned to protect the marathon, storm victims being evicted from hotels to make way for runners, and big generators humming along at the finish line tents in Central Park.
Five-borough nature of the race is symbolic. It's symbolic of the unity that we feel in New York under the best of circumstances. And I think generally the unity that is felt in New York around the running of the marathon. And as I said, this year there was not unity around the marathon, anything but. It had not become unifying, it had become divisive, and you can't have the marathon if it's divisive.
About 47,500 runners from around the world had been expected to take part in the race tomorrow. It had been scheduled to start in Staten Island, one of the storm's hardest hit places. Staten Island suffered the highest death toll of all New York City's boroughs. The dead here included two young brothers who drowned after they were swept from their mother's arms by the swirling sea. Yet days after the waters receded, residents feel ignored and forgotten. People living in their cars waited to get to one of the few gas stations with fuel.
To get out of Dodge, I'm trying to get some gas in my car. I'm getting out of the city. The city don't love me.
U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano visited Staten Island yesterday, touring a shelter and a Red Cross distribution center, where storm victims lined up to get food, water, and clothing. The storm also hit New Jersey hard. Residents of Little Ferry have been struggling to clean up sewage and debris. More than 2 million people in New Jersey were affected by power outages this week as electricity service companies tried to repair the grid. James LaGiulia, TVB News.
US President Barack Obama has accused Mitt Romney of scaring voters with lies, while the Republican challenger warned of political paralysis and another recession if Obama wins another term. And a highly anticipated American jobs report out yesterday failed to jolt the fiercely close race. The unemployment rate edged up slightly to 7.9% last month, but the number of jobs created, 171,000, was higher than expected. NBC News reports.
Charging into the campaign's final weekend, each candidate tried to frame the latest unemployment report to his advantage as either a sign of economic progress.
This morning we learned the companies hired more workers in October than at any time in the last 8 months.
Or stalled growth.
Today we learned that it's actually 7.9%, and that's 9 million jobs short of what he promised.
Analysts say both men make valid points.
There's no question we've come out of the spring lull where the economy nearly stalled out, and we have reaccelerated from that, and that's the good news. The bad news, of course, is that the threshold we're trying to clear here is pretty low.
In Wisconsin, delivering a speech advisors touted as his closing argument, Mr. Romney indicted his opponent's record.
Candidate Obama promised change, but he couldn't deliver it. I promised change, but I have a record of achieving it.
And in 4 days promised a fresh start.
I'll lead America to a better place, where confidence in the future is assured, not questioned. This is not a time for America to settle.
Still, both candidates' electoral fortunes may rest on Ohio.
Ohio, I'm betting on you. I'm betting on you.
Today, accusing Mr. Romney of running deceptive ads on the auto industry that imply Jeep is moving American jobs to China.
To build Jeeps in China.
Ads even the automakers have dismissed as untrue.
You don't scare hardworking Americans just to scare up some votes. Do you want a president who's going to actually tell you what he believes and what he thinks, or somebody who's going to...
Still, both men emphasize bipartisan themes as well.
I will work with anybody of any party to move this country forward.
I won't just represent one party, I'll represent one nation.
To Australia, where one person was killed and about a dozen more were injured today after a passenger train collided with a truck and derailed near Melbourne. Police said that the man in his 30s died at the scene after being found in a critical condition under the rubble near the train's cabin. The train driver was freed from the wreckage after being trapped for more than an hour. According to local media, he's in serious but stable condition at a local hospital suffering lower body injuries. The truck driver suffered minor injuries. 3 train carriages reportedly derailed and one tipped over after hitting the truck at around noon today. The truck was laden with potatoes and vegetables. The cause of the crash is not yet known and an investigation is now underway. And when we come back, rival Palestinian factions at loggerheads over their future state, locally concerns about rising beef prices, and the Bucks stun the Celtics in Boston.
Ears are weird. I don't know what shape that is, but it's not round. So why would headphones be round? They should be shaped like this. Ear-shaped. You know, so they fit in your ears.
Watch online flash video with X Power, only on Hong Kong's most powerful network, SmartTone.
洛斯坦發現蠟菊擁有神奇嘅抗衰老功效，研製出全新蠟菊再生精華素，用後深紋減淡，肌膚緊緻幼滑。蠟菊再生精華素。
L'Occitane en Provence。
揀內衣同揀鑽石一樣，表面上優劣難分。我要做咗個閉目測試。
呢款唔得，呢款